May I request all our delegates to please sit down? We are ready to start with the session now. We'll soon be joined by our esteemed speakers. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the second day of the CII India-Europe Business and Sustainability Conclave 2023. This is a special session this morning, our first session today, on education and skill development leveraging complementarities. And for this session, I'd like to invite on stage Ms. Edith Nordman, Chairman NICCT, Netherlands, Dr. Mohan Kaul, President, Indian Partnership Forum, UK. I think he'll join us shortly. Ms. Ranjita Raman, CEO, Jaro Education India. And our session moderator, Mr. Aman Aditya Sachdev, Director and Regional Head, EHL Education Group. Today being the second day, I think this is a bit of a late start, but I'm sure as you go on, we'll have many more people come in. And while we wait for Mr. Mohan Kaul to join, Dr. Mohan Kaul to join, I'd like to request Mr. Aman Aditya Sachdev to give his opening remarks and take the session forward. Over to you.
Thank you very much. We'll give Dr. Kaul just a minute. He's right here. See, one of the problems of being tall is that you have to adjust the mics all the time. No, all good, thank you. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to this session titled Education and Skill Development Leveraging Complementarities at the India-Europe Business Sustainability Conclave. My name is Aman Aditya Sachdev. On behalf of CII, it is both my pleasure and a privilege to introduce to you our esteemed panelists from leading companies in the education and skill development sector. Keeping with the spirit of Atithi Devo Bhava, I would introduce Ms. Edith Nordman first, Chairman of the Netherlands India Chamber of Commerce and Trade, or NICCT. Edith is the chairman. As I mentioned, she is also an attorney at law and a managing director at ACG International in Amsterdam. An experienced corporate and commercial litigator who is representing both companies and private individuals in highly complex matters. Her practice also covers cross-border transactions, contract disputes, and national and international litigation. In addition, she is an expert qualification in employment law and is a certified mediator who assists her clients in finding amiable resolution in their disputes. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. Dr. Mohan Kaul, President, India Partnership Forum. Dr. Kaul joins us from the United Kingdom, which is a leading, the India Partnership Forum is a leading US think tank formed in the aftermath of Brexit. It is a champion of international trade and investment, as well as a recognized policy advisor, business leader, social entrepreneur, and an academic. His achievements include being a member of the UN Secretary's General Management Efficiency Group, conducting as the World Bank advisor the first evaluation of Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus's world famous Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, and to address a special session of the UN General Assembly on public management. Dr. Kaul, thank you very much for joining us today. Last but certainly not the least, Ms. Ranjita Raman, CEO of Jaro Education India. Jaro Education is India's most trusted online higher education company, that has transformed the careers of over 300,000 professionals in the last 13 years. Ranjita has expertise in roles spanning from R&D, consulting, business strategy, and business growth, expertise in bringing the right skill sets to the right job. She's been a visionary, a motivator, and an enabler. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, education and skill development are important growth drivers globally. Skill-based development can foster higher economic growth by enhancing employability and labor productivity, while also helping countries become more competitive. Thereafter, greater investment in education obviously becomes an important and an imperative part to develop a high-quality workforce. This session today will focus on how India and Europe can derive mutual benefits by enhancing cooperation in the field of skill development by tapping into the complementarities of the Indian and European labor markets. The role of the private sector in this context will also be explored. In order to ensure a productive future for all, creation of employment and livelihood opportunities must be at the forefront of all government and industry initiatives. CII has been working on the skills and livelihood agenda not only on policy advocacy, but also through a number of on-ground initiatives since 1887, which impacts over 1 million youth annually. On a regular and consistent basis, CII is also sought out by state governments in the country to partner with them on the employment agenda. Some of the notable skilling initiatives undertaken by CII are the establishment of model career centers, which are industry-led employment facilitation centers. CII Model Career Centers conduct outreach programs to connect with the youth and job seekers, provide career counseling, impart soft skills and employability training, and provide appropriate job placements. CII has imparted career counseling to over 776,000 youth across the country and provided placements to over 430,000 of them. The CII Model Career Centers, through the CII state offices, work in close partnership with its membership base, which plays a pivotal role in driving the success of this initiative. CII today also operates 5 multi-skill centers or institutes spread across India, which are supported by industry to impart vocational training to the youth, which training is as per industry manpower requirements. CII's skilling initiatives and projects are based on the RTD or Recruit, Train, Deploy model, where candidates are screened by the employers and job offers are provided before commencement of training. The model involves 30% classroom training and 70% training in the industry, thereby enhancing the long-term and gainful employment of the candidates. In another significant initiative, CII has also partnered with ITC Hotels and with IHCL under its Taj Hotels brand in India to provide world-class hospitality training for the VET by EHL Swiss Professional Diploma. Under this partnership, training is provided by and in industry to ensure quality training and employability. CII is India's first largest sending organization under the TTIP or Technical Training Intern Program to Japan. CII is also replicating and scaling this model with other countries such as France, Portugal, South Korea, along with Scandinavian countries like Finland and Denmark. Going forward, and I can say this very proudly on behalf of CII, that it remains committed to the jobs and employment agenda of India. Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists today represent some of the most innovative and responsible companies in the education and skill development sector worldwide. I'm personally very excited to hear from the panelists about their experiences and insights into the latest trends and best practices in education and skill development, and how we may leverage these to enhance productivity and efficiency. I hope this session will provide a platform for meaningful discussions and collaboration between Indian and European industries. From a session flow point of view, I will invite each of the panelists to share their perspectives with this August gathering, and time permitting, we will take a few questions from the audience towards the end. With this being said, I will request Ms. Edith Nordman to please address us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Honorable Excellencies, representatives of global government institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen from all countries. I'm honored to be here today at the Indian-Europe Business Sustainability Conclave. I want to take the opportunity to thank CII and especially Alpa Antani for all your support, cooperation and friendship, not only in preparation of all the B20 events, but also in all the years that NICCT and CII have been working together on the NL-India corridor. Allow me a short introduction from my side. It has already been done quite nicely. Thank you so much. My name is Edith Nordman. I am the chairman of the Netherlands-India Chamber of Commerce and Trade, NICCT. NICCT is engaged in the NL-India corridor for more than 20 years. As the name suggests, NICCT is a business chamber, and indeed, even smaller than that, its main focus was particularly on promoting trade between the Netherlands and India. But for several years now, both our member base and also our missions have permanently expanded to include educational institutions, with one of the triggers being the so-called triple helix approach, the collaboration of government, academia, and trade. The Netherlands is a small country with only 17 million inhabitants, and yet it plays in the world top in various fields, like water, agri, and horticulture being well-known examples. By the way, the Netherlands is also the fourth largest recipient of Indian overseas direct investment, and vice versa. The Netherlands is the fourth largest investor into India. What does this have to do with education and skill development? Well, everything. As a small country, you can only make a difference if you are particularly good in a certain field. But even then, you have to constantly practice and develop these skills. The Netherlands has institutions that have been developing this knowledge for years, for its own students, for foreign students, and for exchanging information in the scientific field. Erasmus University, TU Delft, TU Eindhoven and TU Groningen are known for innovative approaches and being involved with institutions around the world. I do wish to especially point your attention to Wageningen University and research. It is the changing world that is the real specialization of Wageningen University and research, the domain of good and safe food and food production, food security, and a healthy living environment. In essence, Wageningen does not only develop knowledge regarding food, livable metropolis, clean water, biodiversity, circular economy and well-being, but it also helps to apply it. Similarly, there are various partnerships between Dutch universities and other knowledge institutions and schools and Indian counterparts. Learning and sharing knowledge must go hand in hand with being open and generally interested in each other's cultures and backgrounds. Knowledge transfer is not just about books and information, but also about culture exchange and constant curiosity, in the most positive sense of the word. The Netherlands and also other European schools and universities have learned over the years that fixed age-old curricula need to be adapted to the times. A university education is not only there for scientific content, but must also be applicable today. It should be the basis for lifelong learning. To give you just one example, memorizing a law book is of absolutely no use. Laws are regularly updated both nationally and on European level, and of course also supranationally. Students need to understand the basics, the system of the law, and to be able to use the tools to follow and apply new developments. The same applies to cooperation between the Netherlands and India in education and skill development. The exchange of students, of knowledge, experience, and the mutual way of approach can and should lead to fruitful exchange. The Netherlands and India each have different specialized knowledge that is complementary to each other. Further developing training programs is of added value for both countries. At the same time, the Netherlands is learning from India that the human relationship remains the basis for successful cooperation and development. And that is one of the many reasons why I am particularly fond of India. In today's rapidly changing and highly competitive global landscape, education and skill development are no longer a luxury, but rather a necessity for both individuals and economies alike. We need to ensure that we equip our citizens with the necessary skills to meet the demands of the current and future job market. This requires a significant investment in education and training programs that are aligned with the needs of the modern-day workforce. The traditional model of education, where students receive a broad-based education without specialized training, is no longer sufficient to meet the demands of the modern-day workplace. Investing in education and skill development will result in a more productive and efficient workforce, which will lead to economic growth and job creation. It's a win-win situation for both the individuals and the economies. By providing access to quality education and training programs, we can help to reduce inequality, increase economic opportunity, and promote sustainable growth all around the globe. It is clear that skill development and education are of utmost importance in today's world, and it is essential that we work together to prioritize these issues. Governments, private sector organizations, and individuals must come together to invest in education and training programs that will equip citizens with the skills they need to succeed in the 21st century. The focus of all these trainings and educational programs have to lie on employability. For the employability of the young people on the one hand, and the solving of labor shortage on the other hand. Currently, 65% of the population in India is below the age of 35. The size of Indian labor force was 472 million in 2006, 526 million in 2011, and it will be 653 million by 2031. Europe faces a decline in demographic growth and is in desperate need of young, skilled knowledge workers. According to the study conducted by the European Commission, at the current rate, the average age of the people in the European Union will be 49 in 2050. In a study commissioned in 2007 on European demographic future and a similar study on Global Europe 2050 found that the EU needs around 56 million skilled migrants by 2050 to remain competitive. In 2020, the European Commission presented the new Pact on Migration and Asylum, which aims to build a comprehensive framework for attracting high-skilled migrants from outside the EU. This document acknowledges that European labour markets face a structural pressure generated by demographic aging and shrinking population, which can generate specific skill shortages in different localities and sectors. It becomes clearer and clearer that there are skill shortages in many sectors of the European job market, including IT, healthcare, even construction, service, drivers, heavy industries, and so on. Shortage in software skills is now omnipresent in the EU, reported by more than 20 EU member states. In general, skill shortages imposed by cross-border mobility during the pandemic could result in more severe shortages now the UK economy moves towards recovery. By working together on education and skilling programs, we can attract highly skilled individuals from each other's countries and contribute to both the continents. First, we can help address the decline in demographic growth in the EU and ensure that there are enough workers to support the aging population in the EU. Second, this will also bring fresh perspective, new ideas, and diverse skill sets that will benefit the economies and societies of both the continents and attract highly skilled individuals. And third, by working together, to create an environment that is attractive to highly skilled individuals, we can assure that Europe remains vibrant and healthy. But India can become even more vibrant and prosperous for the future generations to come. I'm very excited and much looking forward to hearing more from my esteemed panelists and exchanging ideas and next steps. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Kaul, if I may request you to please address us. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, fellow participants, it's great to be here this morning, and I congratulate the CII for organizing this meeting on such an important topic. And as at this time, education and skills development, particularly leveraging complements between Europe and India, is very, very appropriate. A few lines when this is a most opportune time for such a conference, in the sense that in Europe and in UK, we are facing energy crisis, partly because of the war between Ukraine and USSR, and partly because of many other issues. And sustainable energy has become a major strategy for generating electricity in the future. The present government in United Kingdom, headed by Rishi Sunak, is also very much committed to sustainable energy, but it's, the Labour Party, we have an election next year, has said that if they came into power, they will generate 100% of the energy by the end of 2020s from renewable energy, including atomic energy. So the challenge is enormous, and sustainable energy is the future. And India has a lot of part to play in that answer. Just to present my organization, IPF, it's a diaspora-driven organization in UK. As you know, India has the largest diaspora in UK and growing in Europe too. And they are in all professional services and businesses, and UK and India have a tremendous growing trade and investment. We were hoping that we will have a free trade agreement last year or even early this year, but hopefully we'll soon have that agreement. And after Brexit, idea was to see how India and UK can play a much more stronger role, and therefore our organization is a basically diaspora-based organization, looking at professionals and businesses. As you know, every professional service driven in UK is Indian diaspora plays a major role. It might be in NHS, National Health Services, in education, in universities, and in businesses, small businesses. So therefore, it becomes an important part of the United Kingdom. As a part of that IPF, we have looked at technology as a major source between India and UK. So one of the things was we set up a a technology fund. It's called PONTAC. It's basically looking at, you can innovate in UK and you can manufacture in India. You grow you manufacture for global market here. So we're looking at technology innovators. We're looking at technology entrepreneurs. We're technology startups, and trying to help them to grow through education, through funding, through investment, through creating relations and or partnership between UK and India. That was one of the areas. But sustainable energy training and education was one of the other part of our work. And we work with Cambridge University, particularly the Judge Business School, in terms of looking at the sustainable energy market. And as you may know, the sustainable energy market investment is roughly about $31 trillion business globally. And though India got about 30 odd billion investment flows in that area, it's much, much lower than in the global field. So we feel the actual market for Indian companies is roughly about 350 billion in the energy market, in sustainable energy market. Particularly now it is because the interest in China is waning down, so there is a possibility of India playing a much more role in attracting that investment flows. And we realized, working with Cambridge University, that is basically the global investment community does not have much information on Indian companies in this area, sustainable. So one of the areas for us focus on education and training was how do we build more information base on India's skills, Indian strengths, Indian sustainable energy market. And our initiative involves interaction with asset owners, asset managers, that there is considerable lack of information on Indian private sector and opportunities. So that was a basic problem. We are hoping that we will sort of design training programs which is quote-unquote training programs, more getting information to the global investment community. At the same time, we feel that the Indian companies lack, either the will to sort of attract investment from global market. Given in India the flow of financial flows, I think there is enough financial flows within the country that Indian companies do not have that much of appetite or interest to go and get more European investment. One of the reasons is that when European institutions, for example, in private sector, mainly the lack of information what is needed by these institutions. For example, we have in what's called EUSFDR. It's a Sustainable Finance and Development Regulation toolkit. And every company which is looking for investment from European sources in pension funds or other areas have to follow the rigorous toolkit in terms of providing that information. And some of the companies in India, because they are spoiled by the free flow of, locally flow of financial flows, do not necessarily want to go through that rigorous procedure. But that is a very specific interest for skills development in the area of investment flows to attract investment, European investment in this area. And so therefore, we feel that India need to look at financial instruments within companies which will attract more investment from institutional financial institutions, funds, hedge funds. So that is one area of skills development that one would like to do that. And the challenge is to engage leading influencers to make India's ESG asset class a premier investment destination. And that is what we feel is the challenge for both Indian organizations, Indian training institutions and European training institutions to collaborate to look at how do we make India a destination for investment. And this is the time to tap this market, as we need more educational programs to educate the investment community on one side as well as the Indian corporates on the other side. Investors also emphasize the need to actively, this was on the basis of our interaction with the investment community, with the Judge Business School, we need to actively build scale in capital markets. Again, in India, by establishing a pipeline of corporate and government issuances like bonds, corporate bonds, government bonds, the more of these bond structures are in the market, the better it is for a global interest. We looked at that an analyst of an investor, a global investor, do not spend that much time on India in the ESG thing because they feel there are not many opportunities. So I feel that there is a greater opportunity at this time for Indian companies to get that market, to target that market, and therefore enhance the skills capability to how to do that. Another India's relative advantage of lower labor costs for professional workers offers India an opportunity to establish itself as the back office service providers for global sustainability and ESG, particularly ESG certifications. So like India did in software development area, I think another area which is, I think, growing and will be the major thing in a few years to come will be the back office for ESG and sustainability investment. And India has that potential to become that leader in that sphere as it did in the area of software development. Again, another educational thing is on sustainability accounting. And sustainability accounting should be supported by policymakers as standard certification and the scale to which it could be used. Again, that's another challenge for educational institutions for looking at standard certifications. There's also need for more academia-led work to establish data collection methodologies and definitions that would aid institutional research for better policy and investment decisions. These are the areas which will need both the training and educational skills, but also it will need an institutional framework which will support and sustain as well as encourage this kind of work in India to look at the global market. Finally, the initiative today will help us creating a greater number of professionals with stewardship qualifications, thus assisting in increasing the scale and sophistication of Indian markets. And there is a lot of scope, both from private to private, private to government, government to government, in this area for the future work and collaboration. And I hope we will be able to identify areas which some of you, and which we can work together in terms of future collaboration. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Kaul, thank you very much. Great perspective, not just about what needs to be done, but also where to find the money. So I especially like the important part. If I may request Mr. Raman to please address the audience. Thank you.
A warm morning to all of you. Good morning. Thank you, CII, for inviting me here to share the conversation with the roster of great imaginary leadership team and amazing people to be on the panelist. My name is Ranjita Raman. I must like to give my quick introduction is to bring the perspective, and I would like to focus my talk towards skill development and upskilling and how can we leverage the complementaries. I have served EdTech industry for about 15 years, currently working as CEO of Jaro Education, which is India's most trusted higher education company, has been able to leverage technology to upskill about 3 lakh plus working professionals, works with several institutions in India and across the globe. We have offices in India, United States, Singapore, and Middle East as well. We've been collaborated with some of the top Ivy League institutions and the top IITs, IIMs, offering online technology-based program right from bachelor's level to doctorate level. Yeah? So hence, I would be able to emphasize my talk and discussion all around how can we leverage the complementaries in India, between India and European market, and how can we build a sustainability in upskilling and learning as a platform. So in my sense, I see a great opportunity to leverage this partnership between these two countries. And I would give some of the statistics to start with. So Indian Ministry of External Affairs has shared a report that says about 0.6 million Indian students went to higher education institutions in Europe to take their further education. Now, some of the programs which were in great demand were in the field of engineering, maths, computer science, and business management. Although we see a great demand for tech-based program also from Germany as a country. Now, some of the top-ranked QS institutions are also a part of Europe, which is London School of Economics, Oxford Universities, Cambridge, University of, I think Imperial Business School are amongst the top institutions. However, only 1% of Indian students are able to leverage this opportunity, of course, because that requires a large amount of money to be invested and not everybody are capable to do that. Therefore, I see that EdTech companies can play a vital role by bridging this gap, building tech-based programs which will be not just economical but also quality-based and will be for everybody and not limited to a specific strata of the country. Now, the second thing that I see is some of the great opportunity that we can leverage with government's latest initiatives. NEP 2020, that is called as National Education Policy, which has particularly focused towards the internationalization of education, that has given a leverage to offer dual degrees, 2 degrees can be taken at the same time, one from India and one from the international market. Also, twinning programs where 30% of the program can be done outside and 70% within India, which also makes the program affordable and quality oriented for Indian participants. Now, these are some of the great initiatives of the Indian government that EdTech companies and Europe and India as the institutions can come together and offer some sustainable and great offerings to the Indian market. Now, talking about some of the recent initiatives of government that talks about opening of satellite campus outside Indian territory. So institutions which are among top 100 NIRF ranked in India are allowed to open their satellite campus across the globe and outside India. I think this is also one great opportunity for India to leverage this complementary and build their campuses, satellite campus in the European market and provide quality education not to India but across the globe participants. One more initiative I would like to put through here, which was the recent initiative by the government that allows top 1,000 QS ranked institutions to set up their campuses in India. That would of course allow Indian students to learn from the best mind with a creative, great pedagogy and learn upskill within the affordability of their market range. Now, with all that, I understand that this internationalization, liberalization of education will definitely build in a great opportunity for institutions, government and edtech companies, and therefore I see that edtechs can play a vital role bringing institutions together, upskilling the large market and build in quality education with affordability within the scale and bring in a great leverage for the opportunity to bring complementaries together. And I think that's all that I wanted to share my thought and idea about how can we bring in these complementaries together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ranjita. So let me ask a few questions. I was very busy making notes, listening to each of you. So I'm going to start with Ms. Nordman. Look, the fact that you are here today is a demonstration or a strong demonstration that India is an important potential source market for your country for skilled manpower. And a very interesting stat you shared with us whilst we were speaking earlier, that the Netherlands has the largest Indian diaspora in mainland, on continental Europe, which is, for me, I was not aware of that. So that's actually a very, very interesting statistic. So India is an important source market. We know that, you've got a shrinking population in many European countries, including yours. You need to attract talent. India has a very wide skilling ecosystem which already exists. There is a lot of effort which has been put in by governments and through private agencies to create that skill ecosystem. Can we improve it? Of course we can. My question to you is, India is an important market. You want to attract Indians to work as skilled manpower. What do you see as the Netherlands contributing to India in terms of the ecosystem to further strengthen it from a skill point of view for these people to become productive members of your workforce for the long term?
Thanks. Thank you very much for the interesting question, and it is an important one. I fully share that with you. What we're trying to do, there are already quite some cooperations between Dutch universities, not only let's say the traditional universities, but also the universities, as we call them, of applied science, where not only the training in intellectual faculty is done, but also the applied sciences to the actual progress in the field. And that is something that is not known to the Indian system, and I think that's one of the things that we could definitely add. It's already been worked upon, and there are already contacts between these institutions, because it will help to cater to the need of employability. As I already mentioned in my prior address. It is important not to only have education as education, but it should really matter to the current world. It's not only, as the French say, l'art pour l'art, but definitely also to see what the employability is of these educations. And that's where I think that it's not that the Dutch can bring it to India, but that we can work together on enhancing that field and making it even more adaptable to not only the Dutch, happy to share with the other European countries as well. So that's something that we would want to work on.
Great, thank you very much. I think another thing we could import from the Dutch is how to be direct.
Well, I think the Dutch could learn from India how to be polite and say the same thing.
Thank you very much for that. Ranjit, I have a very important question for you. Technology is a great driver. You run a firm, and a very successful one at that, which has done, achieved a lot in terms of education using tech platforms. My question more is that how do we use, in your opinion, technology, or how do we leverage technology in the skilling ecosystem? Because skilling traditionally has been a very hands-on kind of a learning experience, and rightfully so, because knowledge and mindset may be acquired through digital platforms remotely, but when it comes to acquiring hand skills, significant contact is required. So just to get your perspective, because that is something we keep talking about, scaling up our skill ecosystem in the country. How do we use technology to do that?
I think that's a brilliant question, and some of the areas that I would like to first highlight is technology-based education is not limited to a computer or a headset. That's much more beyond that. So when we say technology-based education and skill development, if it has to be masses, I think there is no choice by then using a technology which is limited to a computer, handset, or a mobile phone. However, the best way to upskill in the tech-based platform is a blended learning mode, which is delivered live interactive, which also enables participants to ask questions and be more participative, interactive in the classroom, learn from the peer, the participants, students who are around, ask questions from the faculties. This is also one of the part of technology-based learning that helps in an interactive mode of learning, and which in fact creates a synergy within the participants, faculties, and gives an immersive learning experience with the help of technology. And I think this also helps in not having geography constraints. Now we see that with some of the Ivy Leagues and some of the top institutions offering these blended learning programs, and not complete tech-based program and not complete online program, with the factor that they want to ensure participants' learning curve, learning objectives are met to more than 80%, 90% is what their thought is. And therefore I see a blend of all different types of tech-based learning, and not just one specific, helps in ensuring that large number of people are upskilled. There is no geographical constraint for participants to go and learn. Physical presence is not required, and therefore we leverage that platform to upskill large number of people around the globe.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, sir, please.
The COVID crisis last 2 years was was a disaster, but it was also a blessing in different ways in terms of technology. So in the one university, what it created, COVID, has also created a lot of imbalances in skills, because say in UK, because most of the education during COVID was given online, a number of people who did not have either online facility or did not have computers could not get that same education that others would get. But what I wanted to say is what said is that university, but it also led to innovations. The University of Coventry in UK has decided that they will do a PhD program on areas which is completely virtual. So the interaction would be with basically will be through virtual means. And, but it will be over a period. It will also be people who are already in work programs. So therefore, this idea of new areas, how to deliver the skills which are some people, where there is dearth of those skills, has come into, some new areas have come. This whole virtual area, which was earlier, if I had a meeting in US or anywhere, you take a next flight and go. But now, you just join the virtual meeting. So I think this has created some very good thing in educational technology. I'm sure, I think you've done that. So I thought I'll talk about it.
Indeed, sir. Thank you very much, Ranjita. Thanks for your perspective. Just, my 2 bits on this. This is personally very important to me. There is so much quality technology out there, even which is available for vocational or trade level skills, whether it's AI driven or whether it's virtual labs. Point is that we need to make it affordable. At this point in time, it's not affordable. And if you can't make it affordable, you can't take it to the masses. So that's another area that we should try and explore, at least between India and European entities, as to how do we create these technologies, but fund these technologies in a manner, structure the capital in a manner that you can take it to the masses across the globe. Dr. Kaul, quick question for you before we go to the audience for a few questions. You've recently signed a very significant undertaking or an MOU with the government of Uttar Pradesh. If you could just, very quickly tell us a little bit about that, and then also tell us, as part of this relationship going forward, because I do understand it's a manufacturing-driven relationship, but is there an investment or a thought process to skill and develop the youth or the workforce which will work on these projects, or are you looking at, bringing in experienced candidates to work on these?
Thank you. Well, good of you to remind me about that. We did a MOU in Lucknow on basically look on technology innovation park, which would be in Noida. Hopefully, after this, I'm going there to look at what is the modality. Idea is that these are all companies which have patents, which have global patents and innovation. Idea is to bring those patents and innovation here. These are areas of medical devices, artificial intelligence, and use of technology in education and others. And these are all innovations which have happened in UK or US, and we try to manufacture it and scale it up for global markets in India. That is what we hope. So that but for doing that, we need skills, we need people, it will not work. We're not going to get people from abroad. It's going to be all local talent. And that is where the challenge will be. How do we generate pool of the talents? New ideas, the new certifications have come, and as all speakers have said. So the idea is that we will have these scale up all these operations hopefully in Noida, near the new airport, for innovative technologies. I just remind something else I thought. Again, because we have the educational experts here, is basically we feel, and this is an experiment we are doing with Cambridge Sustainable Center, is that innovation can be done by anyone. It could be a person in village, could be a person, young boy, could be a young girl. Innovation doesn't need PhDs and all that and skills. But to sustain it and then to make an innovation into a commercial product needs skills and other things. So we are trying to develop with the Cambridge University, if we can create a program on innovations which doesn't necessarily need a certification, which doesn't need an entrust entrance qualification. It needs just an idea, it needs just some techniques, it needs some skills, but not necessarily you have to be a graduate, or you have to be, it could be an innovator in the field, in agriculture, and that's what, hopefully we can make it a global movement in terms of creating more innovations, not necessarily having university degrees to make things.
May I add to that? At the universities in the Netherlands, there are some studies now which tap exactly into what you're saying, one of which is called Science, Business and Innovation at the Free University in Amsterdam, which is a combination of a business study together with science, and there you can either choose the science path on energy or pharma, and the idea is that these young students are educated at the same time on a university level in science, one of the two that they choose, and business, because the problem is, as you say, you can be a trained, scientist, but you don't understand business, and then you have to adapt it to the market. So that has been something quite recent, which we could also add to the experience and help here, because it really helps to have people who understand both the marketability of an innovation and also the development and the understanding of an innovation at the same time in the same person, to build the bridge with new students, with a new generation.
Great, thank you very much. A very important thing was said earlier. I think you mentioned it, Dr. Kaul. You're talking about sustainability and ESG. That is the future. That future is already here, right? And in India, I think we still have a lot of ground to cover on this front. I do believe there is significant opportunity that exists here for us to learn from many European countries, including Netherlands, to try and see how we can acquire that knowledge and take it further. Not just contribute to our own country, but effectively be good quality and contributors to the global economy. We have 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, for questions from the audience, if there are any. Can we get a mic there, please, to the gentleman? Thank you. If you could just please specify your name and the question, if it is to a particular panelist.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rajiv Ranjan. I am representing an organization called Gramin Vikas Trust, which is a body of Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer. So my question is, Ms. Nordeman, as India is leading towards the clean fuels, and Indian clean fuel markets are upgrading like many things, especially in terms of ethanol production from agricultural waste and other things like compressed biogas and other possibilities. So my question is with you is that do you have any such kind of programs or future opportunities where as Netherlands is already leading in clean fuels technology, so or you have a plan for an Indian market for in this sector, or you are looking forward for any kind of collaborations and opportunity we can?
Thank you very much, Rajiv. Yes, there are cooperations already on various opportunities. I'll gladly get in touch with you. As already mentioned, Wageningen University is very, very active on anything that has to do with agriculture and these kind of things. And there are other programs at TU Delft and TU Groningen where there are close cooperations with India, but I'll gladly get you in touch with the relevant people because these are, of course, extremely important topics that should be shared, and happy to get in touch with you. Yes.
Can we get a mic, please? Thank you.
Hello to all the ladies and gentlemen and the respected speakers. My name is Mr. Joel Sonker, and I'm an independent researcher, and I research for BRICS, SCO, the Arctic Council, as well as the Northern Sustainable Development Forum. I'm also a delegate to G20 Startup 20 track. My question to the speakers is that I'm personally in the process of incorporating my own defense startup, and we are focused upon quantum technology in defense applications. As at the present moment, there isn't much leadership of India in this technology. We are interested to collaborate with countries like UK, Germany, and others as well in quantum technology, as well as the investments. So in this regard, I would like to know that what are the possibilities of technological cooperation, as well as from the university level to the research level, as well as the investments which can be, which will be very important for us to partner with Europe. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to suggest that you have a conversation with Dr. Kaul after this session because it's going to be a long one, but I will still let him quickly answer this.
Well, this is, I heard about the quantum technologies from different source a few months ago. So these are definitely new areas and definitely everywhere. In Cambridge and others, there are departments which are looking at. Cambridge Enterprises is also a kind of an interface between research and enterprise in the sense of bringing investment. So since you are a very early stage, one will have to see what is the best probably mix of which we can talk later on doing that. But there is certainly possibilities of such technologies to be nurtured and to be made into commercial vehicles in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, may I add to that? First of all, congratulations on everything you're doing. Very exciting. We have corporations with Startup India, working strongly together with them. So these are the channels that we work through, but we can definitely get in touch with you as well. There is the tech campus in Eindhoven, where there is a lot of startup corporation and academia together. There's also a strong Indian community there, so there is definitely a possibility to get in touch with them. There are not only startups, but also companies that are looking for young talent to work together. So that's definitely, I'm quite sure that there is a way forward to that. Happy to connect.
Thank you very much. I've just been given the signal that we've overrun our time. So my note of thanks and appreciation to each of the panelists for joining us and sharing their views, and to the audience for your participation. Thank you. I wish you a productive day ahead.
So can we have a louder round of applause for the session, which has come to a close? Very interesting. Thank you. Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is on the India-EU FTA, the game changer. It's going to be a very, very interesting session and one of our important sessions for the India-Europe Business and Sustainability Conclave. So I look forward to all of you being here. We'll just turn the table around and start with the session right away.
You want to say this, that this session is starting in the other room?
In the next room, we have a session on shaping the digital transformation revolution. All those interested for that can also move to the next room. Rajiv. इंद्रनील लेके आओ लेके आओ। ये रखिएगा। Request everybody to please settle down. We're going to start with our session. Many of you who are sitting at the back, if you'd like to come forward, it'd be very nice. It's always nice for the speakers to have an audience up front. We have our speakers here, so I'd like to invite on stage our panelist, Mr. Paul V. Jensen, Managing Director, European Business Technology Center, Belgium, Ms. Renita Bhaskar, Minister Counselor Delegation of the European Union, EU Commission, Mr. Deep Kapuria, Co-Chairman CI International and Trade Policy Council and Chairman, the High Tech Group, Mr. James Nedumpara, Professor and Head and WTO Chair, Center for Trade and Investment Law, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Giving the keynote address for today is Ms. Nidhi Mani Tripathi, Joint Secretary and Chief Negotiator, India-UK and India-EU FTA Negotiation, Department of Commerce and Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. The Chair and the moderator for this session, Mr. Sumanta Chaudhary, Principal Advisor, International Trade Policy, Confederation of Indian Industry, will moderate the session, and I'd like to hand this session over to him to take it forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and very good morning to all of you, and let me first welcome all the participants to this session, which I'm sure in some sense all of you are waiting for. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome my fellow panelists. I will introduce them as we go along, but certainly a warm welcome to Nidhi Mani Tripathi, who is in the hot seat. She is, of course, as you all know, the Chief Negotiator for the India-UK and the India-EU FTAs, and she is Joint Secretary in Commerce. And I will, of course, we have a panel, but just to set the ball rolling, we all know that the India-EU FTA has been in the works for quite some time. It began almost 12, 13 years back, probably even more, and it has been through various phases. I don't want to get into the earlier phases, but we have, in right earnest, started renegotiating since last year, and there are, of course, I'm sure businesses will point out, and there is representation from both business and government from both sides. But we all know that this is, India and EU particularly in terms of the shape of their economies have a large number of complementarities. Just a couple to sort of One, of course, is that unlike many other bilateral partners, trade between the two is largely balanced, whether you take the goods side or whether you take the services side. And when one side or the other has a large surplus or the other side looks at as a large deficit, there are additional problems that arise. So that's a very good thing. And if you look even at the sectors, for example, if you look at some of the services sector, since the EU is so much a services economy, the interests are slightly different. Obviously, the EU side has greater interests in banking, in insurance, in retail, legal, while the Indian side, of course, has its own interests in computer, the entire range of IT-enabled services, professional services, which of course is actually of interest to both, other business services and so on. And the same kind of complementarity obviously also holds when you look at the basket of merchandise sort of trade between the two sides. One, of course, feature of this from the Indian side is obviously the fact that this is an agreement where Indian industry looks to the fact that whatever tariff sort of, I would call it disadvantage that they might perceive in terms of the GSP being available to others would hopefully get neutralized through this agreement, and that would enable a level playing field, and that should help. Now again, from the European side, we all know that the process of getting approvals for this kind of an agreement, one has to go to the European Parliament, there are certain prerequisites there are certain issues which therefore come on the table, because that is in some sense a precondition. Now, but these, some of them also become in some sense the challenges that collectively both sides have to overcome in order to reach a balanced, manageable and doable home. Of course, let me just say that the core of this is all of you. It is about goods, services, investment. It is about trade and investment. That is the key and core of any trade agreement that we are, and in a sense, others are supporting. But this is something that obviously both sides are acutely conscious of. But I will not spend much more time to discuss all these issues, challenges, opportunities that are perceived by both sides. We have a very, very distinguished panel to sort of deliberate and discuss more on these issues. In the interest of time, I would request each of the other panelists in some sense to limit their contribution to about 7 odd minutes. And then, of course, at the end, we will hear Nidhi give her keynote address and sort of obviously talk about how it's going, what's happening, etc., etc. So the first person on my panel is Mr. Deep Kapuria. He is the co-chairman of the CII International and Trade Policy Council and chairman the High-Tech Group. I would request Mr. Kapuria to maybe sort of in some sense mention the Indian industry perspective on the India-EU FTA. Mr. Kapuria.
Thank you, Sumanta. Sumanta has an advantage. He's been in the chair as a GS in the Ministry of Commerce. He's been a chief negotiator. He's been represented at the WTO, and he's kind of know-it-all kind of a person. So he doesn't even need to prepare anything. He can literally address us all extempo. While I've been an old hand with him, and at many times been his supporting hand from the industry side, both at the WTO and many of the FTA negotiations, including when we started off with the EU. So, but I need a written speech, so please bear with me. And I will require a little more than 7 minutes, if you indulge in me, because I do need to put across the industry point, and I'm the only industry spokesperson. So I hope you'll all bear with me. So Messrs. Nidhimani Tripathi, who we all know is the Joint Secretary and the Chief Negotiator for the India-EU FTA, and thus Sumanta ji sort of referred to it as the hot chair. We have the other panelists as well, who will be introduced in time. So, colleagues from the industry, ladies and gentlemen, in fact, this way that we are talking about the India FTA, a game changer. And this obviously is a part of the two-day event that CII is hosting as the India-Europe Conclave. Industry is definitely was positively impacted, or let's say it welcomed this restart of the talks between India and EU after a gap of literally 8 years. And it's good to know that the negotiations which are now under discussion are to forge a balanced, ambitious, comprehensive and a mutually beneficial trade agreement, if it's any such thing. We are all aware that, that as India and EU share a very significant and a multifaceted relationship which has spanned over, I think, times which can be counted over literally centuries. Today, our relationship has grown stronger and more diverse, driven by our shared interests and values. This has resulted in strategic partnerships and cooperations in a range of areas such as counterterrorism, climate change, energy security, and education. The relationship also provides a firm foundation to build on the FTA, which is under negotiation. However, it's important to recognize that this FTA is being negotiated in a new era. And what is this new era? It has emerged after a recent economic shock, resulting in a structural shift in the global trading ecosystem, as we have known it for a very, very long time. In this turbulent time, we also saw various supply chain disruptions, which are yet to get normalized. The impact of this may also be observed in the manner in which various countries and businesses are putting efforts to de-risk themselves in the future by laying greater emphasis on self-reliance, reducing dependence on offshoring and outsourcing. Numerous countries, we have observed, have also followed it up with use of more behind-the-border measures and policy initiatives to regulate trade flows. This, in the recent times, one is noticing an ever-growing use of non-tariff measures in the garb of standards, environmental, labor, carbon neutrality, and other compliances. I must stress that the other mega driver which has contributed to this mega shift, which I spoke about, is technology. The adoption of this was accelerated by the recent pandemic. The net impact is resulting in digitalization and unprecedented growth of digital economy primed by digital trade in services. This also has been accelerated and seen advent of various applications such as smart tech, as we know it as Industry 4.0, as the Germans call it, which encompass both goods and services. This change has an important feature that's emerging because digitalization and growth of digital trade, which is now being termed as servification of manufacturing value chains, is becoming important. It means that value-added content of trade and its movement would be more and more towards services value-added content. In fact, if we look at the challenges, they don't end here. There's also, in the recent times, the challenge of sovereign debts and stagflation confronting many developed economies. In this gloom, if we were to term this FTA as a game changer, it would be an understatement. In fact, the potential benefit of this FTA would extend beyond economics. In the current geopolitical climate, where protectionism and nationalism is on the rise, India-EU FTA would signal a commitment to open and free trade. It could also serve as a counterweight to the trend where nations are looking inward and prioritizing domestic interests over international cooperation. Yesterday, at this very conclave, our Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, in his address mentioned, quote, India expects the FTA with EU to be a game changer, the topic of today's discussion. He also mentioned, quote, Europe and India can strengthen each other's strategic autonomy by reducing dependencies by cooperating on critical technologies. The FTA, under negotiation with its fourth round, which will be soon underway, would undeniably be a huge leap forward in ensuring stronger and deeper economic ties. Indian industry definitely is very keen on a positive outcome of these negotiations. This agreement would help us unlock untapped areas of collaboration and which possess huge potential. Let me quickly gloss over the obvious outcomes of FTAs, so I may spend some time on the pertinent issue on the mind of the industry. If you were to look at trade, EU is already India's third largest trading partner, while India ranks 10th for EU. The focus in the FTA is on diversifying trade relationships and increasing investment flows, which will create jobs and boost growth and contribute to our common prosperity. Of course, the market access is not limited to tariff barriers anymore. It needs addressal of other aspects such as trade regulations, sustainability standards, etc., which also dictate a level of market access, especially in the EU market. Investment is another exciting aspect of India and EU relationship. It has been a key driver of economic growth and job creation in both India and Europe, though it definitely has a room for improvement. There's also significant potential for collaboration in emerging sectors such as digital technologies, biotech, aerospace, etc. Given the commitment of both sides to promote innovation, entrepreneurship, we can leverage our respective strengths to create new opportunities. Okay. So let me get to the issues which are on the mind of the industry, starting with the issues of trade and sustainable development. Environment opportunities and challenges, no doubt, all countries have to make efforts to transit to a low carbon economy. However, India cannot do so by becoming overwhelmingly dependent on imports of green products and technologies from developed nations. In order to ensure that transition to a clean and green economy is not economically and socially disruptive, it must be accompanied by creating jobs to keep sustainability and inclusivity as the two prime pillars. An important way of achieving this objective would be for India to domestically manufacture a lot of the environmental products, including equipment for generating renewables. Thus, rules under India-EU FTA must have positive policy provisions for Indian industry which would promote domestic green manufacturing by liberalizing technology transfer facilitation along with green financing. Being also the chair of National Accreditation Board, which comes under the Quality Council of India, I urge that FTA must also be flexible to adopt standards for adequate environmental protection and not have commitments on...
Mr. Kapuria, may I request you to please, because I think Nidhi has to leave after some time.
This is something very critical for the industry.
I know.
Just very critical for the industry, so just bear with me for another minute or so. Because if I'm the spokesperson for the industry, and these are critical issues...
No, please, go ahead.
Yeah. So, as also representing QCI, which is the Quality Council of India, we have also advocated the harmonization. Rather than harmonization, we should have mutual recognition of standards and conformity assessments to help address some of the TBT issues. We are also aware of the fact that EU has some of the implementations of carbon border adjustment mechanisms. I hope that our chief negotiator will look after. Next, only two very, very brief points are on the labor issue. Given the India's complex legal architecture, including the state and even local government participating in the labor rules, any stringent requirement of FTA would not only be sensitive politically, but also pose major difficulty for the Indian industry, specifically the SMEs. Finally, I must mention digital transition and data security. Since we are in the process of formalizing a local provision and regulation, we as industry would advocate a balanced position. I know that a lot of the knowledgeable panelists are here. I'll end my thoughts here and hope we'll be more learned by the end of this session, specifically when our chief negotiator talks to us.
Thank you, Deep, and for bringing out, I think, very clearly some of the issues that I think are sort of, in some sense, been there for Indian industry. So now to hear the other side, may I invite Mr. Paul Jensen, the Managing Director of the European Business Technology Center. And I know it's probably not fair, but as the moderator of this session, and since we are running short of time, I would request all the panelists to kindly sort of keep their interventions.
Do not worry, I'll be very quick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here. CII and EBC have been partners for a long time, and I myself have been in India for 18 years, so I've seen the first round of the negotiations as well. Yeah, and to stand here today with you, dear panelists, and speaking in front of you at a business and sustainability conclave, which is the DNA of EBTC, the European Business Technology Center, is very exciting. I mean, I can make a 30-second speech because I can actually take Deep Kanuria's speech, and everywhere where you said Indian business and Indian industry, I'll say European business and European industry. Simply because I have been here spending time now for the past 2 days in this hotel with a great number of European businesses who are here, a great number of European ministers who are here, and my overall sense is that there's a huge appetite. Everybody is feeling that now is the time to collaborate. Yeah, now is the time to catalyze what is being done at an EU-India FTA trade negotiation level, to catalyze that to business collaboration. And I think that is the key word of everything that I've heard. There's a big sense that India for European businesses is not only a market. India is a place to come, to partner, to experiment, to collaborate, to innovate, and not only for an Indian market, but also for a global market even. And I think that's what is so tantalizing. And I can tell you also, when I tour Europe, I'm one of the biggest promoters of India. I tell European companies at conferences and sessions and workshops that, look, we have great technologies in Europe. We have great solutions, great ideas, and great thoughts. But one of the challenges is when we come to India, we have to adapt that technology. We have to adapt the thinking also. We have to adapt the solution to fit Indian conditions. And who is the best? What's the best way to do that? That is to partner and collaborate with Indian counterparts, Indian businesses, Indian academia, and Indian stakeholders. And that has been proven time again. There's some companies in the room here who originally came to India long back with research labs, which in the end effect, in the beginning, were cost arbitrage centers for the research work done in Europe. But that is changing heavily, yeah? Because once you start building on research innovation in India, and you work a lot with India, and you develop products and solutions for India, then you will see the benefit of also having developed something for other places other than India, but also even back home in your home market in Europe, and even for other markets. And I heard a lot in the past few days about the global south. So, and Mr. Kanura, you also spoke about, and it's been mentioned several times in the conference as well, we have a new economic reality, new global economic reality. Yeah? Whether we're talking pandemic has pushed some borders, the unwarranted crisis in Ukraine, the unwanted invasion of Ukraine, shifting supply chains. So I'm not saying, yes, supply chains have been disrupted, but we're not going back to a normal. I would say there's a whole new thinking in supply chains, not only in the actual global physical chain, like it's not only going to be China, it'll be China plus one, it won't be China plus one Russia, it'll be China and India. And many companies are scouting now. Where should we look for other parts of our global supply chains? And India is for sure coming on the radar. So one reason, India has obviously a huge domestic market, but India was in the past for a lot of companies not super interesting to have as a major part of a global supply chain, as a manufacturing part of a supply chain. But I think that realization has also now come also to India. There's a big focus on a lot of those tick marks in terms of infrastructure, in terms of logistics. There's a new logistics plan that has come out, National Logistics Plan. A lot of investment announced in the budget for the infrastructure. And that is giving confidence to these European companies who were here and saying, now this is a good time to be in India and this is a good time to consider investment. And now the companies in India, the European companies already in India, are the first ones to actually invest more in India. And that is also something that gives confidence, along with investment from large Indian industries, to say that India is a place to be, India is a place to come. So I'm expecting now, so like I said, I've been here for a long time, been working on Europe-India collaborations at a business and at a research level and at a technology level, and I'm sensing that the hockey stick that we so often see in India, the exponential growth. So you have to imagine, I've been here since 2005. I've seen, in my first 5 years here, I've seen an international airport being built. I've seen the metro being built. I've seen Gurgaon grow. I've seen the expressway go. And the way we look at growth in India is so much different from the way we've been looking at growth in Europe. There's no way you can do a linear regression model for growth in India. The day the expressway opened between Delhi and Gurgaon, in 2007, there were more cars than they had expected and forecast for 2018. So it opened and was already too small. We're seeing similar things happening with the airport as well. It was built for 32 million passengers. It's carrying more than 60 million passengers a year already now. Yeah? So I think, and that's also where the complementarity is between, I heard several times some of the ministers that were speaking at the Conclave yesterday and even the day before saying Europe has a lot of skill, but India has the scale, and that's a complementarity. If we want to work on these incredible challenges we have with climate change, net zero, and what have you, we need to collaborate. We need to work together and leverage each other's benefits, leverage each other's advantages. And that was also what the External Affairs Minister yesterday, Dr. Jaishankar, said. And that's where the opportunity lies. And why is the EU-India FTA agreement important? Because that will create the conducive framework for companies to collaborate. There's a lot of obstacles still, and I know that the negotiators are aware of those obstacles, and I know that they're fighting for making that conducive environment. And the quicker it can be done, the faster we can together tackle a lot of these challenges that we have in the world. I think that was it. I had a lot more, but we'll keep it short and something for the panel discussion as well.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks for, these key words, partnership and collaboration. And that's something that should ring in the ears of everyone here. So may I now request, well, the remaining three are all in the thick and thin of negotiation, so I know. But I would again, since we are sort of running short of time, we first have Dr. James Nedumpara, Professor and Head of the Center for Trade and Investment Law. So James, if you can sort of speak for about 5 or 6 minutes, I think then we would be able to hear Nidhi before she sort of embarks on one more of her meetings. And of course, Renita as well. Okay, James, it's over to you.
So thank you, sir, and distinguished panelists and an enlightened audience. So I will be very concise in whatever I speak. So generally in the context of any trade agreement that involves the advanced economies like the European Union, it will be a deep agreement. And when we think about a deep agreement, it will generally transcend beyond the market access kind of issues. It will touch upon a number of what you call as behind the border measures. So when you really look at the behind the border measures, there are a number of those kind of measures, and among them we'll find an important place the category of sustainable development issues. So when we think about sustainable development, what are these kind of issues? At a very broad level, they actually relate to the environment and the labor standards. So when we think about the labor and environment standards, one common feature of all these agreements is that they will actually require an FTA partner to affirm or reaffirm their obligations in multilateral environment agreements, or maybe in the core ILO labor conventions. So if there are 10 ILO core labor conventions, it will actually require the countries to make an affirmation towards adopting some of these standards, or at least make a sustained and recurring effort in terms of ratifying these kind of standards. And one important thing that we know is that sustainability is actually the buzzword. Wherever we go, to whomever we speak to, that term really comes up. And we also know that the condition of the planet is actually in peril. We have to do something on an urgent basis. So at least at the level of a principle, it is very difficult to oppose sustainability. Then why is it such a big issue? In the context of a country like India, which has so many national level or federal level statutes on labor and environment, or maybe on other kinds of areas, and has also a number of state level legislation, it is very difficult to implement all these kind of standards or legislation in its letter and spirit. It is a very challenging one. And the problem has been that in some of the sustainability chapters, especially dealing with the European Union, there is a very interesting case of the EU filing a case against Korea under the European Union Korea Free Trade Agreement. And a similar case has actually come up where the United States challenged the Guatemalan labor practices. And these issues are not at the moment, so that's so critical, but still, the very possibility that some of your domestic measures can be challenged by a labor union through an FTA mechanism actually creates a sense of panic. How to deal with this kind of an issue? I think both the parties will have to be pragmatic. When you really look at a country like India, we are actually at the very bottom of that curve in a way. But when it comes to European Union or UK or some of these bigger trading partners are concerned, their compliance with the labor and environmental standard is definitely a level higher. So we have to actually make the transition. So one of the most important challenges is basically measuring the transition cost. What is actually the cost? Or what is the pain I have to undergo in order to make that particular transition? Every country will have to make that commitment at some point in time. One possibility is to actually keep some of this binding, this kind of binding dispute settlement provisions away from these agreements. At the end of the day, any trade agreement has to be a cooperative exercise. It has to provide the opportunity to the other party to make the best effort, the best endeavor in order to meet these kind of standards. And these efforts are actually good faith efforts. But at the same time, if you're bringing a trade partner to a dispute settlement body, and that too visited with the penal punishments or any kind of a sanction, the whole exercise will not be taken in the best spirit. And that is actually the major challenge. So let me also talk about some of the European Union initiative in recent times. All these measures are actually towards meeting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 such goals at the moment, 169 targets, or most of the countries have actually agreed to it. But at the same time, every country has set their own pace, their own comfort level in meeting these kind of standards. India has got a particular deadline for meeting net carbon neutrality. The European Union has got a package called Fit for 55. By 2030, they would like to make 55% commitment towards carbon emission. So every country has determined a level of carbon emission cut based upon its own particular situation. And one challenge is that if you are bringing this kind of free trade agreement, if you are actually bringing these issues into the free trade agreement, then there could be some kind of an anxiety for the trading partner. In a way, to just give an example, the Paris Agreement, the Conference of Parties actually signed an agreement in 2015, the very famous Paris Agreement. The commitments, the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement is actually voluntary in nature. But if you make an affirmation in a free trade agreement with respect to a commitment to affirming this NDC, it can become part of a trade agreement and perhaps can become an enforceable subject matter under the trade agreement. What are the consequences? The countries may definitely lose a certain kind of policy space. So that means all these measures can actually become subject matter of a unilateral enforcement. And that is one area where both the countries, all the FTA partners will have to work together. My own sense is that, sometimes what actually works in a free trade agreement is the art of the feasible. Every country may have their own concern. And sometimes when you deal with a bigger country, a country like India, or maybe a country like Brazil for that matter, the commitments will have to be calibrated. If you expect the same kind of commitment in all the FTAs across the board, then I think we are actually trying to miss the target. The FTA may be delayed, or there could be serious concerns with respect to the conclusion of the agreement itself. So in a way, I feel that sustainability has to be there in free trade agreements. The way it should be crafted requires a huge amount of imagination as well. Since the time is very short, I don't want to prolong for more, but thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thanks, James, and I think thanks, James, for reminding all of us that sustainability itself has to be sustainable. So thanks for that. May I now invite Renita, and Renita and I, of course, used to be on the opposite sides of the table. Well, quite some time back, Renita. So time has flown, but Renita, she is the Minister Counselor in the European Union delegation to India, and obviously she would be talking about the EU sort of approach as well. Over to you, Renita.
So, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody on the panel and ladies and gentlemen in the room. It's a great pleasure to participate in this discussion today, and thank you to Sumanta for reminding me about my age and my long history in this negotiation. I had a little speech. I think I'm going to mostly discard it. But I will not fall into the trap that James has set out for me and enter into the discussion on the trade and sustainability development chapter. So in short, I'd like to say it's really a perfect moment to have this discussion. But I'd also like to signal that actually maybe a little change in this title of FTA Game Changer, because we are also engaged right now, the EU and India, in actually a package of deals. So we're negotiating an FTA, but we're also negotiating an investment protection agreement and a geographical indications agreement. The issue of the supply chain disruptions following the pandemic, also aggravated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, have of course been the defining feature of global trade recently. And so the EU definitely believes in an environment like this, and our belief is reinforced that trade and investment agreements are an important tool to facilitate integration into global value chains, and it is therefore important to design trade policy measures and instruments taking this into account. We do believe FTAs are an effective tool for integrating into global value chains. And we also consider that a comprehensive approach two FTAs that looks into a broad coverage of trade in goods, services, investment across a broad range of sectors is a more effective mechanism to get there. We also consider that in order to fully leverage the export potential or the market access gains that an FTA generates, it needs to be complemented in our respective domestic systems. It's a two-way process by a 360-degree approach to trade flows. That is, that we try to bring in efficiencies into supply chain through franking measures that improve infrastructure, that create a predictable policy environment, and that make a nurturing environment for businesses. So I'm very happy to say that with India, we have agreed to pursue a complete package with these three negotiations, and we've agreed to go in for a comprehensive approach to our FTA negotiations that would include market access for goods, services, for government procurement, digital trade, intellectual property, as well as provisions on trade and sustainable development. The investment protection agreement, in addition, should bolster investor confidence on both sides, and we are quite confident that this will lead to an increase in foreign direct investment in both directions. I think we should not forget that increased investments is also a good effective manner to increase employment. In fact, the existing investments between the EU and India today already contribute to over 1.3 million jobs in India, and there's a good scope to build this further. As far as geographical indications is concerned, the third pillar of this package, we have a similar approach as far as that is concerned. And once concluded, such an agreement can support rural communities and help preserve the cultural and culinary heritage on both sides. Now, of course, this is not to say that the negotiations will be easy. If it was easy, we would have concluded it the first time. Any negotiation is a challenging endeavor, and this is not going to be an exception. But we are clearly interested in seizing the moment. Now, a few words on the Indian domestic context, and we note with full support that India is keen to reach its goal of a US $5 trillion economy by 2025. In fact, recent World Bank reports estimate that India will need to invest about $850 billion over the next 15 years, and that's on an average $55 billion per annum into urban infrastructure to reach these goals. The report also underlines the need to leverage more private and commercial investments to meet the emerging financial gaps. Now, of course, FDI in India has been growing consistently. However, FDI in infrastructure still constitutes a very small share as compared to what takes place in services and IT. And in fact, services and tech together only account for about 36% of India's cumulative FDI inflows, whereas infrastructure and construction account for only about 9% of this share. And this is despite 100% FDI being permitted through automatic routes in infrastructure investments. Similarly, EU FDI flows to India have grown consistently. Today we have a share of about 11% of total investment inflows into India. But it's an obvious thing to say the potential to do more is significant. If you just do a straight comparison of what the EU's investment in India with that, for example, Brazil, I think it explains my point. EU investment in Brazil is about 4 times that of it in India. And Indian investors, of course, today represent only a tiny percentage of total FDI inflows to the EU. So we must be honest between friends and acknowledge that our bilateral ties suffer from a number of trade and investment barriers which have impeded our potential. And therefore, in this background, these package of agreements can play a crucial role to address these barriers. I hadn't planned to do so, but I would like to take the time, just a few more minutes, to address a few lines that I hear often in the press and sometimes earlier in the panel. The EU is asking for WTO plus elements in its FTA. I'd like to say here that WTO is the status quo, and we have taken a joint decision to go beyond status quo. And when we take a joint decision to go beyond status quo, consequently and logically, we have to be talking about WTO plus elements. Of course, it's very normal that in negotiation there's two parties involved, so it's not whatever the EU says it works. Both sides need to agree, and the mandate that we have received from our leaders calls for a mutually beneficial deal. But it is important that we don't look with fear when we talk about WTO plus elements. It has to go beyond WTO. Another point that we often hear is that the FTA will be there will be some forcing of aligning to EU standards, and that will affect sovereignty and increase costs. Now, if you look a little bit closely at some of our past FTAs or table texts, it shows that we see FTAs as an opportunity to align to internationally agreed global standards. We believe this is essential not only to integrate into global value chains, but it also creates a predictable business environment that attracts global investors if they have to follow the same set of standards. FTAs should be about trade only. And here I would not want to enter into a legal argument because I will lose it with such eminent lawyers in the panel, but I would just like to submit that we must recognize that the world has changed and that trade flows are not taking place in a vacuum. They affect people, they affect citizens, they affect the planet. And there has been a significant amount of concern in the recent years about globalization, and it's been precisely on this issue. And this has not been specific to Europe. I think you can find the same concerns across the world. And so we do not mean to use an FTA to impose EU standards on labor, environment. But we do also see, however, in FTA, it's not a race towards the bottom. I mean, that's what our constituencies and citizens expect us to ensure. And so if it is a race towards the top that we want to do collectively, it's also an opportunity for us to affirm our attachment to implement and ratify agreements that both parties have signed up to in international fora. So it is not EU standards, but it's international agreements that we have signed up to. And the way we see this going about it, it's not with a stick approach, but it's also a lot of carrots in there. We see this as also as an opportunity to deepen our dialogue, cooperate, reach consensus, move forward, cooperate on in the global arena in these areas. So finally, I would like to come back to the beginning and say a last word on global trade flows. And I think it struck me when I heard this number, and it also riled me. I know Paul mentioned, and a lot of other people mentioned about their long-standing relations with India. This is my second posting to India. I'm of Indian origin. And when I heard this number, it really upset me, which says India represents about 8% of the world population, and it's growing. But its share of global trade is a little less than 2%. That's simply not right. The world needs to have India to have a fairer share of this pie. And of course, we're not going to start a discussion on why India is at 2% today. You need another panel. Sumanta, you need to organize another panel. But I think I'd like to just say a few words on how to get there. So we welcome very much the recent FTAs India has concluded with other third countries, because we do believe preferential trade agreements is the way to get better integrated into global value chains. An FTA with the EU, due to its size and opportunity of the EU market, is we believe, the right step to make a big change towards global value chain integration. Furthermore, the opportunity to conclude a comprehensive agreement, I think it makes it an even bigger opportunity. But what would make it really transformatory in order to really go well beyond the 2% and to a rightful share is probably a comprehensive FTA with flanking measures to improve regulatory certainty, predictability, and the ease of doing business. It would give a boost to India's efforts to seek manufacturing sector specialization and competitiveness, which is currently low. So our leaders have given us the foresight to a mandate to progress promptly on a package deal. I would say let's go forward. This is the game changer. And let's not waste, let's not make sure that there's a good crisis ongoing. Let's not waste it. Let's use it. On the EU side, we're fully committed to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renita, and thanks for, I think, highlighting the two other pillars of this sort of thing, which is investment and, of course, geographical indications. But without further ado, let me invite Ms. Nidhi Mani Tripathi, the Joint Secretary, and as I said, the Chief Negotiator. Nidhi, the floor is yours.
I hope I'm visible. It's a bit. So thank you so much, and let me thank the organizers for organizing a very pertinent topic on a pertinent moment. And everybody referred to Minister Jaishankar's speech, inaugural speech, and of course, as we say that this is an opportune moment for India and EU and of course Europe, and we've had if I look back the last 1 year, there has been a momentum in terms of exchanges, in terms of establishing these contacts to a structural level, that we've done too many things. But I think Renita's speech and of course Professor James' sustainability agenda, we are all tempted to get into the negotiating positions and reply, or so that can, of course, like Renita said, there'll be another panel to do that. Today's actually the conclave that was conceptualized by our Ministry of External Affairs, keeping in view not only of course we are talking of FTA today, but as I said, that this has been a momentous year for both. And Renita mentioned about 3 pillars of the free trade agreement, investment agreement, and GI. But we also established Trade and Technology Council, and the 3 pillars that we have over there, and Minister Jaishankar touched upon those 3 pillars in his speech, which is like green transition, digital technologies, and of course trade and investment that we are all talking about today. So what we say that these 2 giants, I would say, of course EU is a much developed, advanced economy, and we are an emerging economy. What I would say that EU has odd, I think 40-50 FTAs. We have around 15 to 16 FTAs we have had in the past with the economies which are mostly Asian economies. And so many speakers mentioned about disruption in supply chains, post-COVID strategies. Nations have recalibrated their strategies, and after even Ukraine war, everybody is looking at trusted partners, trusted supply chains. In that context, of course, even India has recalibrated its trade strategy, and some numbers Renita brought to the table. But of course, we aspire to be a developed nation by 2047. We have, she mentioned about 5 trillion economy by 2025. We also target to be a 10 trillion economy by 2032. And for that, of course, we need to see how we recalibrate our economic strategy, which includes, of course, trade. And looking at that, we have now, if I may say so, a revamped FTA strategy. Last year, we signed 2 FTAs, with one with Australia and one with UAE. I'm sure that is not the template that EU likes, but of course, as I say, the need of a nation we have to, you know, I keep telling Renita and her team that, you know, one size never fits all, and this needs to be seen with a pragmatic approach. Some people use that word here. So, and so many points have been made, so I'm not going back to my prepared speech, because I also want to, you know, touch upon some of those points, and time is a little limited. So what I always say, that EU has a template for, you know, all the FTAs, and so many numbers she brought to the table. Even, you know, India as an emerging economy, when we say, when you look at the growing market that we are going to offer to EU and EU exporters and industry is immense and huge. And that requires a recalibration of certain you know, aspects of your FTA strategy, of EU's FTA strategy that we are negotiating. And that is what the job of negotiators. Of course, we cannot discuss all those things here. But I would say that I've been saying that all along, that the approach that EU has followed in all its previous FTAs may not be exactly the same with India. And India comes with a unique opportunity. India comes to the table with a kind of sincerity and commitment to a trade deal which is fair and reciprocal in its nature. And fairness and reciprocity would be very important. Some of the speakers touched upon the regulatory cooperation and the barriers that exporters face while exporting to EU. But I would also say that, you know, EU exporters also face huge amount of barriers when they export to India. So the job that we have at hand while negotiating is to align those, I think Mr. Kapuria was talking about mutual recognition agreements and a lot of other things that could be done. But what I would say, the key word should be, there was partnership, there was collaboration, but the key word should be pragmatism in this case. If you and your member states would be willing to give you mandate to tap a huge market that India is going to offer. Having said that, let me just go to some of the things that we can bring to the discussion. If we see the numbers, you know, of course, if we put these two together, we are, I think, 23 to 24 trillion size of economy. But as our minister keeps saying that even if we grow by the rate that we are growing, you can see the numbers by 2030 and 2040 and 2047. So opportunities are immense, and for both sides, I would say. For us, of course, we are also going to tap a huge market. Even if you remove the intra-EU trade, it comes down to around 3 trillion of exports. So it's a huge opportunity for us. It is a huge opportunity in terms of also aligning standards and bringing in quality. But as few issues which Professor James brought to the table, and I'm not going to discuss that, but we need to see that India needs time to arrive at the level that you are seeking right now. We can have, you know, some kind of pragmatic approach for, you know, having some staging, having some discussions. We have all those discussions on the table. And right now we are also negotiating FTA with UK. We are also negotiating with Canada. So all these issues are, you know, on table in most of these FTAs. But we need to see EU from a different perspective that we understand. And if you see Indian government's commitment to that, each and every topic or policy area that is being covered in this FTA is being discussed and calibrated in detail internally. And we bring in, you know, our industry, our government departments, topic-wise, there is a deep consultation and deep calibration going on. But through this, I think I would just like to highlight that we may need some more time to take it forward, because as we are looking at it from a different approach, as we are approaching this FTA from a completely different perspective, I feel European Union and member states would also need to look into it in a different way. We keep interacting with different member states, and we keep getting those feedback, how they feel about various issues in this FTA. And I've seen, like they were, I think Mr. Kapuria and Paul mentioned that in last 2-3 days they have seen the amount of keenness, the amount of interest that we see in industry and also business leaders from across the 27 member states. That's immense, and I feel we should make all efforts to not let that go, as you said. And on investment protection agreement also, I would say that our Ministry of Finance is deeply engaged with the EU side. We have our model BIT, and we have certain provisions over there that we are discussing with the EU. And you brought some numbers of investments also for FDI. We are really happy to say that we have more than 98 to 99 billion of investments from EU into India. And maybe this IPA discussions will take that forward, and of course those would also bring additional numbers. And on GI, there's something which we agreed with EU for especially accommodating their interest. The member states wanted to have a separate agreement, and there we are progressing quite, I think, well. And but our idea has always been to sign all 3 agreements simultaneously, so that we can tap the advantages and benefits of these 3 together. And apart from these sustainability and all other issues, we are also a bit I would not say perturbed, but we are feeling a little challenged with the announcement of CBAM recently, and it is going to cover around 5-6 sectors which are key to Indian industry and supply chains. There is also another regulation which has come up in the Green Deal, and where we are talking about deforestation related measures on a couple of sectors. At the same time, somebody mentioned about GSP benefits. Our industry, I think on January 1st, 23, I think a huge number of products graduated. Few products had already graduated in 2017. So, it's not that the challenge that we face in terms of regulatory cooperation and in terms of the measures that keeps coming, that also requires us to recalibrate our FTA approach. N number of studies are conducted when you start a negotiation. When you get into a discussion or in the FTA negotiations, but all your assessment go haywire when you keep getting such new regulations with such new difficult measures. So these are the things that we need to, maybe those are not being discussed as part of FTA conversations, but those all will come to the table and would have some kind of advantages and disadvantages, and we need to calibrate very carefully in terms of, and assess very carefully that what would be the implication for our businesses. So it's as I say, that there's a huge amount of opportunity and complementarity. As we say, we are democracies, we believe in rule of law. In the present geopolitical situation, we are natural partners, as we say. And so there's a huge number of complementarities, even in terms of trade, when we see the sectors that we are looking at and the sectors that you would be looking at. There's a huge amount of complementarity between the two. But as I say, that, that also comes with a huge number of challenges and difficulties. From my Indian perspective, what I feel that no one can say that, those challenges are something which we cannot resolve. I feel those could be negotiated and discussed. And as I say that, with a pragmatic approach, we will be able to crack this deal. So it's not, the point is that both sides will have to approach this FTA with a pragmatic approach, and we should not let the moment go, as Pranita said. This is the moment, and I think this is the right moment for both sides to tap this opportunity. And from our side, we can say we are working very hard to do that. And I'm sure we need lots of good luck to crack the deal. And we would expect that from industry and all the business leaders present here. Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Nidhi, for, I think, giving us that macro, broad view perspective. And I think both in terms of my old negotiation hat, this is a word that we often say in negotiations, pragmatism, but something that is also forgotten at times, if I can sort of say so. We need to do that, but clearly the opportunity is there, the moment is there from, I think, industry and government from both sides. We do need to ensure that this happens. And I think I am not going to conclude. This is not a concluding sort of thing. It is an ongoing process. But maybe would you be able to wait for 5 minutes for couple of questions? 5 minutes. Okay. So maybe we can, since we could take maybe a couple of questions, and I'll request sort of them to be brief and to the point, so that we could wrap up in the next 5 or 10 minutes. And yeah, please. The gentleman there, yeah, right in front of me, please. Yeah, maybe one or two, yeah. Yes, right.
Good afternoon to all the ladies and gentlemen and the honorary speakers here. To describe about my background, my name is Mr. Ujjwal Sonkar, and I'm an independent researcher in BRICS, SCO, Arctic Council, and as well as the Northern Sustainable Development Forum. I've also been invited as a delegate in G20 Startup 20 track. I'm in the process of incorporating my own defense startup, and we are focusing upon quantum technologies in defense applications. As we discussed just now, and we heard about what are the recent collaborations with European nations as well as India, I'm pretty sure that, as we know that, to be honest, that we aren't the ones who are excelling in quantum computing or leading the quantum race. We are very much focused upon mutual cooperation with other nations who are developed, and as well as academic institutions such as universities in Europe who are globally well established. I would like to ask a few questions that we are actively looking for partnership with the European nations in the regard of quantum computing. What are your opinions about that? What are the possibilities, and what are the partnership prospects in this regard? Thank you.
Would any of the panelists want to, Paul or Renita, would you like to, Paul, would you like to just answer, and then maybe?
Yeah, this is a very specific topic, quantum, and I must say I'm definitely no expert there. But obviously there'll be opportunity for collaboration between yourself and counterparts. Yeah? I'm sorry, you are from Europe, or you're from India, looking for European partners to develop. Yeah. So I also actually don't know how proficient Europe is in quantum analytics and quantum technologies. So maybe if that's the case, then that underscores what I was saying, that there's a big value in collaboration, cross-border collaboration. And in terms of the FTA, I also don't know exactly what within the FTA or what currently limits you from doing that. Maybe it's you're an independent researcher, you're setting up your company, you want to know how to do that in Europe, you want to reach out to potential counterparts, and that's the challenge. Yeah? And that's imminently possible already now, even if the FTA is not there. Yeah. So I think the best way to do that is to take contact with us. I'll put you in contact with our teams, and we'll understand more in detail and who to reach out to. But it's a good start that you come to a conference like this, and we can have a chat afterwards over coffee and see how to progress on that.
So I think very briefly, would Mr. Kapuria, would you like to say anything on this?
See, we have a separate forum in CII, which actually facilitates these kind of collaborations. I think the best thing is that offline, you get in touch. I'll introduce you to a couple of the CII people, and I'm sure they would help you out in figuring out who the right partner could be. Thank you.
I think we need to sort of wrap up this session because the next session is on, but let me take this opportunity and request all of you to please, with a voice of acclamation, thank all the panelists, and I would also personally sort of thank them for being so, considerate and sticking to the time schedule. So thanks to all of you, and we will continue this dialogue forward. Thanks to all of you. Bye.
And while the photo op happens, let me tell you the next session here is Future of Mobility. And I'm sure you all will find it very interesting, and we have with it, and this is the last session before lunch. So request you to please remain seated. Practices. I think our speakers for the next session are already here, and we are going to be starting right away. As soon as we have the table set, we'll start with the session. Mr. Amit Sawhney, Managing Director, Nippon Global SL, Spain. Mr. Guido Magnus, Managing Director, Geo-4A, the Netherlands. Mr. Rijit Sengupta, CEO, Center for Responsible Business. Mr. Rajiv Wahi, Escorts Kubota Limited. Mr. Atul Chura, Chief Business Officer, Star Agri Bazaar Private Limited. Chairing this session and moderating it is Mr. Piruz Khambata, Chairman and MD, Rasna Private Limited. May I request you, Mr. Khambata, to kindly take the session forward? Yes, please come. Request all of you to please settle down so we can start with the session.
Good afternoon. Maybe if we can sit, I think we can start. Many years I've been running these sessions and I always know the food is just before the food. Sometimes I guess it is on purpose also. Excuse me, my friends, if we can sit. So at the onset, I would like to welcome each one of you for this very important session on food practices, the food productivity, the next practices. And I'm very happy that we have a very powerful speaker panel I just got introduced to. And it is my duty to once again welcome each one of you. Mr. Guido Magnus, Managing Director, Geo-4A from Netherlands. Welcome, sir. Mr. Rijit Sengupta, CEO, Center for Responsible Business. Mr. Amit Swani, my old friend, MD of Nippon Global, Spain. Mr. Rajiv Wahi, International Business Head, Agri and Construction Equipment Division, Escorts, Kubota Limited. And Mr. Atul Chura, Chief Business Officer, Star Agri Bazaar. We have got a mix of speakers and I'm sure they are going to add immensely to today's session. And I would want each one of us to speak for 5 minutes, 5 to 7, then so that we have little time for some question and answers also with the audience, and interaction with the audience I always like. Before I start, let me tell you that we are in a very unique space as far as food processing and agri is concerned. I would say unique because we always talk of the sunrise in the food processing industry. And I have always been talking when it will come. But luckily it has come. The sunrise came post the pandemic, and we are seeing huge interest in Indian agri and food across the world. I am just returning from Gulf food, and I think across people are talking of Indian food. And I think the government of India, led by our Prime Minister in his vision for food from India, is giving full impetus and benefit to the agri and food processing sector. In this budget also, which was just a few weeks back, a lot of benefits were extended. Maybe I'll take some of the audience to some of the benefits so that you know. Number one, the PLI scheme, which is the Productive Link Incentive Scheme, which has been announced, where companies can really invest and the government gives a little what I call subsidy or assistance in terms of around 6 to 7% of the sales. The PLI has been a game changer in most industries. It has been announced, like even mobile phones, medical equipment, and I'm sure it is going to be here also. But the unique feature of the PLI scheme for our sector is it has also been announced for branding and marketing abroad. And a little credit of it goes to CII because it was a direct CII recommendation that instead of only giving for capital expenditure, give it for branding and marketing because India needs to market its food abroad. So 50% of the amounts you spend on branding and marketing abroad is given as some sort of a cashback, which I think is a great initiative. Also, scheme is for organic products, novel products. So I will just, each one of you request you to just see the PLI scheme. Second, if you see the Ministry of Food Processing website and the Agriculture Ministry's website, you will see a lot of schemes under the heading Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat means how we can be self-dependent, how we can reduce imports, how we can increase exports, how we can have home-grown technology. Many such schemes are there, and I would each one of you to really take them. For example, TOPS. TOPS earlier was to tomatoes, onions, potatoes, but now TOPS is for many crops, where they give support for logistics, where they, in terms of whatever, storehouses, freight. Most important announcement which has been made recently in the budget also it was covered is this is the year of the millet. I will say what is a millet? Millet was earlier thought millets is for pets. No longer. In fact, I have been eating millets the whole of the COVID. I was home cooking whatever, bajari kotli and bajri rotli and khichdi, and I soon learned that it is very good for health. It increases immunity, it is good for the whole system. And I am so happy that the government has taken the initiative to launch India as a hub for millets. The advantage is that in agri and food processing, every country is known for something. Say wine from some place, almonds from some place. If India is known for millets, it will help us, and farmer will realize better money from millets than, let us say, other crops. The nutritional profile of millets is better. Millets can be part of our midday meal schemes. Millet can make lovely processed food. So processed food companies like us can value add millets. We ourselves have made, for example, a millet soup, and how we can, gain from it abroad. So a lot of things are happening around millets. So this is the sum and substance. Setting of today's context of the meeting, there are a few points which I would like to sort of mention, especially around the food productivity and the next practice. Number one is precision agriculture. How we can ensure in our Prime Minister's vision, which he always talks, more crop per drop. In a country like India, land is there, water is still scarce, or land is also getting scarce. How do we ensure with least water usage we can make maximum crop? How to use technologies such as drones, sensors, satellite imagery, soil health cards, to have precision agriculture. This is one area where India is working. Sustainable livestock management, because this is something which really, what contributes to greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, how we can have a sustainable scheme in that. Waste reduction and recycling, especially for food processing, is a major thing. How do we ensure that the minimum, waste reduction is there, recycling is there? From my industry, sustainable packaging is very important. Companies are moving from, say, A to B types of plastic. Consumers are willing to pay premium for sustainable agriculture, sustainable packaging. Companies are doing a lot. In fact, many of our boards have already had sustainable goals where we have made. So how do we really ensure? Similarly, sustainability in supply chain management is also important. Other field where I think Indian companies and agriculture is all working together is organic. There are a few districts which have been identified as organic, chemical-free, the whole district. And I think governments, state governments, local governments are helping in a big way in this organic. In fact, the state I come from, Gujarat, our governor is very vocal about getting chemical-free agriculture going. Other thing is food security. Once again, how we can work with the government. The COVID has shown that ultimately every country needs food security, how we can work. Ensuring IT in a big way in agriculture. Our speaker also is going to talk about it. But how we can apps. Today, why should the farmer not know what is the price of a given crop, say, in another state? If he knows that price, he will be able to better negotiate. How can we help the farmer know what crop through IT? And then, mind you, computer, mobiles are not only urban, even rural people are using. So how to use IT to really enhance agriculture productivity? And last, my favorite topic I always say, end customer is king. But customer also needs a little bit of what I call knowledge dissemination, awareness around a lot of topics. For example, high protein, high fat, what is sugar, how much sugar to eat, what should be the healthy style. I believe a lot of technology can help there also. And IT apps are in a major way can help customers. For example, I have an app, a nutritional app which can tell me what to eat, when to eat, how much to run. So I believe companies and governments should work more on IT to have this knowledge on food, what to eat, what not to eat. These are my few points. Of course, we'll have some more time for question and answers later, and I'll be very happy to answer if you have any queries on what I just talked about. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Guido Magnus, Managing Director, Geo-4A, for his 7-minute address. Please, if you want, you can come here, you can speak from there also, whatever you wish. If you have a presentation? Okay. Your presentation has been loaded? CI has loaded the presentation? Hey? You like to? Then wait, maybe I can take the other speaker and meanwhile you can load the presentation. Jara load kar do usko. Jara load karwa do presentation. It is there? हाँ तो लगा दो. Presentation loaded? No, allowed नहीं. Okay. So, I think the organizers don't wish a presentation.
Okay. No press. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the floor and the introduction. Guido Magnus is my name, and I'm glad to be here and to talk about digitalization, specific about the potato chain. What we see everywhere, where we talk about sustainability, it's a word what's coming along often, but how you can use that in your chain. Geofray is a company who is standing up for a while, and we do remote sensing, but our specific for remote sensing is that we not focus on an area, but that we go a little bit deeper. We go even to parcel level, and that is one of the topics where I'm going to talk about. Our vision is how we can support the agri-business through innovative satellite bases inside, with the strategy focused on the potato industry. That could be the seed sector, but also the processing industry, but also partnerships who are involved. If you look then to the background, how we have to feed 10 billion people in 2050, how we have to deal with the climate. We know what's happening, we have intense showers, we have more warm weather. Doesn't matter where you go in the world, you see the more extremes coming along. And what does that do with the potato and with the potato crop? Then I look more from my vision, how I see that, how you can cooperate and work together in a stewardship, and to bring people together with the mindset and how they think. The basic is to earn money, because if you don't make any money, then you can have a lot of ideas, but at the end of the day, nobody will be positive and will continue with the job. The stakeholders in the whole potato supply chain, they must be involved, and that must be on one way on a social way. That is, of course, a word that is a huge word, but I think the background from that word is fine, and also how to cooperate together and to deal with that. Because when you talk about climate, then you need, for example, new varieties. That is what our breeders do, to bring them for the certain countries to the farmers. But then for a more technical perspective, where I'm standing for, that is how we can use new innovations in the supply chain of the potatoes. And when I talk about the supply chain, then I talk from breeding, seed potato production, rare potato production, till the processors. And when you talk about that complete chain, just mentioned now in 4 words, but there are a lot of people and companies involved in this chain. How can you optimize your yields? What do you need? What kind of digitalization can help in this case? And I think, where I'm working on, that is that we see what is happening in the field. With this information, we can go back to the farmers to advise them to control the crop and to focus how to act. Because sometimes there's missing some knowledge. That is also one of the reasons that I'm here in India, to see how we can share knowledge together with the Indian partners to bring the supply chain to the next level. Another kind is that we see there are a lot of post-harvest losses, and I think that is one of the topics where we can make huge step in also in the whole chain. If you can reduce your losses, I think that is maybe the biggest step in sustainability, to create a high yield and also a sellable yield. And that is where we're working with. I have a lot of tools to inform the farmers or the producers or the processors in the whole potato chain with this information to try to have the risks better in control and to optimize the yields. So for me, it's very clear, if you want to make a huge step in sustainability, in the food chain, increase yield and reduce losses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to invite Mr. Rijit Sengupta, CEO of Center for Responsible Business, to have his address. Rijit, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the organizers for inviting us. My name is Rijit and I work for the Center for Responsible Business. We are a think tank working on sustainability issues across different areas, working on supply chains and sustainable value chains and circularity and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for the invitation once again. As we heard from our previous speakers in the earlier session, Europe and certainly the EU is not just an important and a leading trade and investment partner of India, but also been a partner and a supporter for various initiatives and programs of India on sustainability and sustainable business. So therefore, the conclave is absolutely apt, and the moment and the opportunity is very, very important for us to appreciate. Agriculture is the backbone of the Indian economy, as we are all aware. I don't have to repeat this I don't have to preach the choir about it. And therefore, if there are possibilities for the EU and Indian stakeholders to come together and develop sustainable, resilient, circular supply chains in the agri sector, that would be the most important thing, and more importantly, a very important contribution by both parties as far as the long-term development of the country is concerned. So from that context, I'm going to talk about two areas where I feel, based on the work that CRB has been doing over the years, that there are extremely significant opportunities for the EU and Indian stakeholders to work together. And these two areas one of them is what I think both Mr. Kambata and also Guido spoke about. One is food loss and waste, and the other, and the opportunity to sort of reduce waste, and what kind of opportunity does that bring in for the EU stakeholders, looking at some information and data that we have. And secondly is strengthening the farmer-producer organizations. Any conversation in the Indian agriculture sector cannot be had without a consideration of the smallholders, because of the number of smallholders in the country, and I'll come to that. So on the first topic, which is of food loss and waste, the Indian Council of Agriculture Research had done two surveys, one in 2012 and the other in 2015, and came up with, which were published in 2012 and 2015, and it indicated that in 2012 our overall food loss was about 12.7% of the production, and in 2015 it came down to still about 9.5% of the whole production volume. There is a fair bit of discrepancy in terms of data. If you look at different data sources, they'll give you different data, but the crux of the matter is that a lot of food is wasted. There is an incredible amount of food loss happening, and food loss, by the way, is what is defined as loss happening from the farm to before the consumer, and food waste is post-consumption waste. So these are two sort of phrases which are used together, but food loss is essentially which is before the consumer, and food waste is after. And the reason that we have, there are several factors which sort of contribute to the food loss, which is what I'm going to focus on. And in terms of the annual loss, Chair, it is over ₹1 trillion as far as analysis and data shows us. And what are the reasons for this? There are three main reasons that I'm going to talk about. The first is, and you mentioned it also, food processing. We are currently utilizing only 10% of the food is being processed, which is not even comparable to what some of the other emerging economies like Brazil, Malaysia, Philippines are doing. They have anything, between 50 to 70 and upwards percentage of food which is being processed. Secondly, post-harvest handling is not as sophisticated. We have had challenges with food packaging, with cold storage and cold chains as well. And the third is in terms of the storage infrastructure. And I was talking to Guido that most of the storage infrastructure that we have is for potato, which is only about 15% of what we need, and concentrated in 4 states. So here is, if we want to, if there is one area where the European Union stakeholders and Indian producers and their organizations could consider in the agri sector, we definitely feel food loss and waste is one of them. Investing in the areas of food processing, post-harvest storage, etc., can not only help the investors and the companies to report on Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is on sustainable consumption and production, specifically SDG 12.3 on food loss and waste, but also food loss and wasted food also contributes immensely to greenhouse gas. About 8% of greenhouse gas comes from food loss and waste. So if the two parties come together and invest in addressing the problem of food loss and waste by looking at these areas of investing in food processing, investing and working together in storage infrastructure, this could definitely be a win-win in terms of highlighting that this partnership is actually contributing to reducing greenhouse gas and also contributing to SDG 12.3. The next subject, or the second topic, the second area which I mentioned earlier, is on strengthening the capacity of farmer producer organizations. And this is critical because, as I mentioned earlier, a large population of farmers are smallholders, marginal farmers. 87% of land holdings are below 2 hectares in our country, according to the NSO. More than 71% is below 1 hectare, again, based on the latest NSO figures. So we understand that as far as agriculture policy and practice is concerned, if we are not able to do something for the smallholder, that's where the vulnerability and the challenges are most. And the government of India has initiated this FPO program of forming 10,000 FPOs. The timeline is a little strict, but I think we're not doing too badly there. FPOs, or farmer producer organizations, provide opportunity for collectivization so that there is a marketable surplus available at the level of the FPO, which might not be available at the individual farmers level. So there are 3 or 4 areas where producers and FPOs and the partners can sort of work together, and these are areas of concern or challenge of FPOs. One is local value addition, second is good agriculture practices, and third is access to market. And if the producers and the buyers can come together and work on these 3 areas, there can definitely be a contribution to developing sustainable agri-value chains. However, it has to be, the process is also as important as the system, and it has to be the parameters of sustainability has to be based on discussion and consultation and consensus, and the producers and the buyers can definitely focus on these 3 areas. On one hand, it will help buyers sort of report that they are contributing to sustainable development goals and creating sustainable agri-value chains. And for the producers, it will also ensure that the community that they are part of, the risks pertaining to community welfare, risks of pertaining to the workforce, and also the local biodiversity, etc., can also be addressed. So another area for EU companies and investors to probably consider and strengthen the ability and capacity of FPOs to be able to engage with the market, with those sustainability parameters.
Rajit, sorry, we'll have to slightly.
Yeah, that's
7 minutes.
that's it. I'm closing.
Well, I want some
last sentence. So, and just to end that, our organization is also created a sort of a framework on sustainable FPOs, and it will be launched in the next month. And we'll use that to see how we can bring the FPOs and buyers together to develop sustainable agriculture value chain. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks. We have Mr. Amit Sawhney, Managing Director, Nippon Global, SL Spain. Mr. Sawhney, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Distinguished guests, my co-speakers, my old friend Kiruz. Well, I would like to keep it short, keeping in mind the time frame. So, first of all, I would like to thank CII for choosing and giving this topic, food productivity next practices, because I believe food is, at the moment, is not only the basic need, but it's the need of the hour also. Seeing the tumultuous time the world is going through. And we realize that supply chains and food productivity needs to be more resilient. So in my submission, I have kept it very simple, 3-point A, P, C, I call it. A is for agriculture advancement, P is for production, and C is for consumption. So far as agriculture is concerned, well, I come from Spain, which is very rich in is an agro-based economy also. And one of the very advanced methods they are adopting very well is the vertical farming. We'll not talk about details in that due to the shortage of time, but vertical farming is such a nice concept along with greenhouse. There is a city called Almeria, which is full of vertical farms and greenhouse. And when the hard times were approaching last year and Spain realized there could be a dearth of sunflower seeds, since we are into edible oil industry, they have grown such a good yield of sunflower that our group and Spain itself has majorly export sunflower, which is already famous for olive oils only. So alternative methods of farming are very good. Coming to the production, smart production, robotics is a very good, again, people are coming to, production units are coming to more and more automations. Recently I have visited a plant where they were bottling 42,000 something bottles per hour, which is like 500,000 bottles in a shift. So it's a great advancement which is being achieved. And now coming to the consumption pattern, well, consumption also, there is a next practices involved. Now lab-grown meats are widely accepted, which avoids slaughtering of animals. It is accepted by FDA as well. There is a plant-based meats also in India, is a phenomenal player about plant-based meats. Then recently, when I was in Gulf Food, I have seen a very nice concept. It's called RoboChef, where robot was cooking basically. So it was a very smart concept, and RoboChef was making any kind of dishes. It's a cloud-based management system. So I feel it is also an advanced level of, it's a next practice for cooking. So far as consumption is concerned, my fellow speaker Rajit already talked about food waste. I would just like to add that in Spain, we have got an app called Too Good To Go. It's a very beautiful step towards controlling the food waste, because in Too Good To Go, you just buy a surprise package for 3 to 5 euros, and this app connected all the big hotel chains, restaurant, and in the end of the day, whatever food surplus is there is being gifted to this as a magic box. So I think it's a really good way of addressing the current times to hold the food waste. Last but not the least, yesterday in the Europe session, in Denmark session, I have heard this couple of times that Europe has got skills and India has got scales. And well, I think both Europe and India has got a lot of skills and more than that, we have got the scope to do business. So I think technical collaboration is a very good ground for both the country and continent to do joint venture. My group itself has done a very good step taken forward on this direction. We have collaborated with a company in Gujarat. They are Murtaza Foods. So they are pioneer in processing onions and onion-based products. So together with them, we have come up with a new manufacturing facility in Gujarat, in Mahua. And it's a new line of business making condiments and sauces. So it was a challenging time because from India, people just expect an authentic or exotic sauces, which India is famous for. But today, successfully, thanks to our collaboration, we are exporting sambal oleg to Indonesian client, srirachas to Far Eastern, and European sauces to Europe, all made in Mahua, Gujarat. So I think I encourage more and more tech collaborations in future also. My group is open for that as well. And I think this is going to be the next practice where we can impart each other and give each other whatever we are good and best at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amit. Any business to do in the sessions, 2% you have to go to CI. Huh? So as a speaker, if you promote businesses, that is my role. So keep in mind. So I am very happy.
You are still naughty.
We have Mr. Rajiv Wahi, International Business Head in Agri Construction Equipment Division, Escorts, Kolkata. Mr. Wahi, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I represent company Escorts Kubota Limited. It's a joint venture from Escorts India, which has about more than 75 years history in India, and Kubota Japan, which is again a leading global agri and water management company. So together we have fairly good experience of 200 years in the agri and the food space. Last year, my colleagues fellow speakers have talked about the agriculture and the food sector. In the last couple of years, I just want to mention that agri sector particularly has shown a lot of resilience in spite of COVID, lockdowns globally, that we've seen agriculture being the primary sector showed very positive growth trends because it's one of the basic industries and it's very important for us to see, especially in view of the food security challenges. Also, one of our presenters spoke about the growth, the number of people that we are adding up from 6.5 billion to about 8 or 9 billion by next 2 to 3 decades. The land is limited. More and more people moving from rural to urban. The rural areas, the cities are getting crowded. So the need of the hour is to, from that limited resources that we have, increase our productivity. And that is the challenge that, from the company and the sector we represent, the mechanization part, how we can, through mechanization, tractors, implements, smart agriculture, improve the productivity from the given piece of land. So we have been present Escorts in Europe for more than 23 years, having a factory in Poland, and now with Kubota having 4 own sales companies in Europe. It offers us a very good platform to look at Europe. In fact, last year, more than 50% of our business is coming from EU, because I believe what India and Indian experience offers, I often say 3A. 3A means affordable, adaptable, and appropriate. Technology that India has offers a very good solution to the not only European but the global agri sector. So with that knowledge, we are able to, with our presence in Europe, very effectively with our tractors, with matching implements. We're not only just making tractors, but a whole set of crop-specific implements, attachments are being, and also setting up training centers. We have a training center in Poland, we have a training center in France. Through that, disseminating a lot of this information that we have over the years, both physical as well as digital training today. COVID has also taught us a new way of more and more digital reach, that has been helping us increase our presence, reaching out to the end farmer. We've also bringing a lot of technology. One of the first companies a few years back to bring out electric tractor, which is in fact in Europe getting very good response in a lot of applications, including municipalities, organic farming, fruits, vegetables, etc. We also now in the advanced stage making autonomous tractors again for large fields, which will help for the productivity. And also moving from the focus is to go forward not only from an agri mechanizations, but more towards a solution provider, looking at from the customer perspective, what do they need, and tailor make, give them a solution rather than try to sell a machine to them. So with that focus, with the training centers, the move has been at the company level to become a complete solution provider. And we've taken a new, Kubota is known as a global philosophy, on your side, which we have also adopted. On your side seems a very simple word, but it means, be looking at what the customer needs, what are the future trends, looking at from that perspective and come out with solutions to the customer. So thank you very much. Not take more time. If any questions after that, we'll be welcome to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the most very important session is by Mr. Atul Chura. And what I like about him is how we can have technology to help the farmer. So maybe you can, what you told me, you can more focus on that.
Hi, good afternoon everyone, and thank you CII for having us here, and it's a pleasure to share the dais with such an esteemed speaker. I am Atul and I represent AgriBazaar. We are an EgTech company. We started our business in 2017 with an objective to have technology drive the agriculture trade. Till now we have done about 9 million metric ton of transactions on the platform. And whenever we talk about sustainability in agri, I think the most important stakeholder in farming is the farmer. And the farming as a business has to be sustainable for the farmer. Everything comes later. Unless he won't produce, it will not be sustainable. But over the years, if you look at the climate change has actually, threatening the farmers' intelligence. Farmers are having a lot of experience, traditional practices of farming for every crop. But with this climate change, even climates, the sowing cycles are changing, the temperatures and rain is changing, and which is highly impacting the productivity at the farm level of a farmer. So if it has to be sustainable for the farmer, it has to earn more money. The profitability of the farmer per acre has to increase for him for the farming to be sustainable. With that objective, as a digital platform, we started an initiative to provide with a tech-led decision support system for the farmer. So what exactly does the farmer needs to make decisions to be a sustainable farmer? There are 5 main decisions that he has to take. Number 1 decision is that what is the crop that he should be growing, which is the most important decision, that what kind of crop he should be growing, which will give him the maximum margins, maximum profit at end of the crop season. Second is he has to optimize his input application. So input application means he has to optimize what inputs he has to use and also reduce his cost of buying input so that his raw material cost reduces there. Third is on the best package of practices. Though he has a lot of traditional knowledge, but with changing environments, changing soil types and the changing weather, his package of practices will have to change to get maximum yield of that crop. Then he has to continuously monitor the crop, the health of his crop, so that he does not loses on the yield, has to manage the pest attacks and everything. And finally, he needs the best price. He has to realize the best price into the market. So in all this decision making, there is a lot of role which technology can play. And that is where, that is also going to define the future of agriculture, and that is also going to drive the sustainability in the agri sector. To just give you a case study, we over the last 3 years have digitalized one complete district in Madhya Pradesh. And when I say digitalized, we have mapped each and every farmland in that area. We have tagged the boundaries of the farm. We have tagged that this farm belongs to which farmer. We are monitoring the soil condition and the main nutrition of that farm. We are running weather reports on this on a continuous basis. Even we are tracking the health of the farm on a real time basis on that particular crop. And based on that, we are rolling out advisories, or not in the sense advisories, but some knowledge or centers to the farmers that what they should be doing. And at end of this harvest, we have set up a procurement center, an electronic trading center in that district, where farmers can directly come and sell their produce, and we have buyers. So it is basically supporting the national agriculture market of the government of India. We are enabling farmers to digitally connect with the market in this area. And in doing so, we are using technologies like we are doing remote sensing data combined with the ground truthing. We are using soil sensors to understand the soil properties. We are using weather station data to monitor the weather conditions. And then there is a mobile application which reach out to the farmers where advisories and all the information does go out. So with this area, and eventually there is a digital payment system to link payments directly to the farmers. So there is a marketplace from where farmers can also buy inputs directly from the suppliers. So with this, this is the role which a technology can play, and we are talking only about grains and oilseeds, basically the main crops that we are talking here. If you talk about even the fruits, and so there are a lot of initiatives happening in the tech region where sensors are used in the farm to monitor the crop health. Where we have also, the drones coming in. We also have, mechanized equipment coming into the productivity. So with this, I'll just conclude. And in terms of the association between India and EU, so this is just a tip of the iceberg when it comes to the Indian market. I think agriculture sector is the one which is going to adopt technology at a very greater pace, and this will become one of the largest and most promising sector in agriculture. There have been a lot of concepts where farmers have been assured that technology can help them in reducing their costs and increasing their productivity. And once that adoption rate of farmers increasing, there will be a lot of opportunities for something like sensors or the devices or the digital technologies coming to this. And we as a country, I must say, and even Agribuzz as a company, we are very much open to collaborations. We are collaborating with startups in India, we are collaborating with tech providers in India, as well as we are open to collaborate with international companies who would like to come and explore this market and offer more creative solutions and innovative solutions for the farming sector in India. That will be all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. And we have some time for questions, I believe. No, I guess so. No. I do appreciate, and we will go ahead. And thank you. I thank all the speakers. Thank you, and I thank the lovely audience. And meet you for lunch. I think over lunch, if there are any questions, we are available, and we can take it by the side. Thank you very much.
Can you also join us? Because otherwise panel. Want us to come and join us? Very uncomfortable to me.
I just want to share some information. Lunch is in the Kamal Mahal dining area at the end of the hall. And request everyone to carry your bags out of here because we'll be resetting this place for the Minister of Commerce and Industry session, which